Everyone, welcome. As we're waiting for folks to join us tonight, please feel free to share in the chat your name and where you're calling in from tonight or this afternoon, depending on where you are.
Hi, everyone. I'm Francesca. I'm on staff with the Worker Circle. I'm our manager of social justice. Just saying, hey, I'm calling in from Brooklyn, New York today. I'm just reminding everyone you can introduce yourself in the chat with your name and where you're calling from. But if you feel like coming off mute to say hello, you can do that too.
Absolutely. Thank you. Um, and I'm Shoshana, and I'm our Democracy Circles organizer, and I am calling in from Washington, D.C.
Yeah, seeing we've got some representation from Spokane, Washington, San Jose, lots of West Coast representation tonight. Santa Rosa, I have family up there in Healdsburg. Nice to see you, Santa Rosa folks. People calling in from Maine. Oh my gosh, more than one person from Maine, Tucson, Arizona, Dallas. Wow, it's wonderful to see people joining us from all over the country. Thanks for being
Truly
here
coast to
tonight.
coast.
Yeah, yeah, we've got Minneapolis, Fairfax, Virginia. Wonderful. These are actually places where we have other folks who've started democracy circles in some of these cities as well. And yeah, Yuma, Arizona. Welcome everyone. I think we've still got a few people who may be joining us and coming into the waiting room, but we'll get started in just another minute or two. Thanks everyone for being timely. So, hello everyone just joining us. I'm Francesca Rubinson, manager of social justice at the Worker Circle, and I'm going to turn it over very soon to my colleague Shoshana, who's going to take us away with our presentation about how to build power and start a democracy circle. So, thank you everyone so much for being here. I'm going to turn it over to Shoshana, and there might still be a few more people trickling in to join us.
Wonderful. Thanks, Francesca. Hi, everybody. Like Francesca said, my name is Shoshana. I use she, they pronouns, and I am our National Democracy Circles organizer here at the Worker Circle, and I am based in Washington, D.C. And so just want to give you, as folks are settling in, and to start a little bit of an overview of who we are and what the Worker Circle is. So the Workers' Circle is a national, secular, Jewish social justice organization that is rooted in Yiddish culture. We were founded by Eastern European immigrants who came to the United States fleeing autocracy and persecution and seeking democratic freedoms at the turn of the 20th century. That history drives our work for an inclusive democracy and human equality today. Our, uh, our organization is rooted in Jewish culture, but you don't have to be Jewish to be part of our activist community. We welcome all who share our values and wish to build a better, more beautiful world for all. So tonight we're going to introduce you to democracy circles as a way to build power and build community in the places where you already are. One quick note before we get started. Everyone will receive all of these slides and the recording of this meeting in a follow-up email later this week. And additionally, we'll have a good chunk of time for Q&A at the end. And so if everyone can either put their questions in their chat or hold on to them, that would be great. And we'll make sure that we answer all of those. So I'm going to pass it over to Francesca.
Hi again, everyone. I'm Francesca Rubinson. I use she, her pronouns. I am the manager of social justice at the Worker Circle, and I live in Brooklyn, New York, not far from where I was born and raised in Washington Heights in New York City. And to tell you a little bit more about how we came here tonight to be leading this training on democracy circles, the Worker Circle is a proud partner of another organization who's been a part of putting this training and this organizing model together. And that organization is called the Center for Common Ground. The Center for Common Ground is a nonpartisan Black and women-led voting rights organization founded in 2018. Raise a little hand on your screen, or you can say hello in the chat if you've ever done any organizing work with the Center for Common Ground. They do amazing work and are great partners of ours, working in voter suppression states where there are more than 20% of the voters are voters of color. That's really where Center for Common Ground puts their focus in states like Alabama, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Texas. Collaborating with local partners, the Center for Common Ground strives to mobilize all voters with a particular emphasis on voters of color, both those who consistently participate in elections and those who have yet to exercise their right to vote. With our rights and freedoms and our very democracy under attack, it's more important than ever that we build power and support one another on the ground in our communities. So that's what the Worker Circle and the Center for Common Ground seek to model by being close collaborators and what we hope to bring to you with this Democracy Circle training. So I'm going to launch us into talking about what is a democracy circle. And you'll see this logo here of democracy circles with the slogan, demand democracy, fight fascism. So I'm going to say a little bit more about what that means to us. At this moment in our nation, democracy is under attack at a speed and a magnitude that we've not seen before in our lifetimes, or I know I certainly haven't seen in my lifetime. Those attacks look like a rise in voter suppression laws, the weakening of institutions and agencies that implement laws, regressive judicial decisions like the Calais decision we just saw earlier this week, or is it last week? You know, sometimes time can blur together when so many of these attacks are coming quickly. These decisions have been undoing rights and precedents, and there are many extremists who are willing to use threats and even violence to achieve their aims in our midst. So you can imagine that it carries weight for a Jewish organization like the Worker Circle to say fight fascism, and we don't use those words lightly. Among our members and leaders are descendants of Holocaust survivors who know how democracy was destroyed in Europe during World War II. As a Jewish organization, the Worker Circle feels a particular responsibility to name the rise in fascist politics today in the United States. And we're not saying that America is a fascist regime. Our democracy is still standing. There's so much that we can do to protect it and expand it, but it is being actively compromised by anti-democratic leaders and the removal of checks and balances that have long defined our system of government in America. We believe that by naming fascism and by taking action, firmly for democracy, we can better understand and fight what is happening. So if you're curious about anything that I've been saying, there's several scholars that we look to at the Worker Circle who have been working diligently to help us see this rise in fascist politics here in the US and around the world and how to push back against it. So some of those thinkers and suggestions for reading, if you're curious, are Timothy Snyder at Yale, who's the author of On Tyranny and On Freedom and many other wonderful books, Jason Stanley at Yale, who writes about how fascism works, and Ruth Ben-Ghiat at NYU, the author of this book, Strong Men, that can really be illuminating for what we're seeing today. So the work of these scholars help to ground our understanding of fascism, how to push back against it, and informs the Democracy Circle model. So we like to give you this kind of little bit of scholarly grounding and background so you understand sort of what we're drawing on and looking at as we think about pro-democracy activism. Now that's sort of our theoretical scholarly piece, and now Shoshana will tell you more about what a democracy circle actually looks like and what members of a democracy circle do together.
Wonderful. So before we start talking a little bit about what democracy circles do, I sorry. I'm curious from everyone here, are you someone who, when it comes to taking action, are you more likely to get going and learn more while you act, or do you want to learn about an issue and then take action?
Yeah, and you can put your answer in the chat. I saw one response come in already.
Yes, one person says learn then act. Curious for other folks. You're also welcome to come off mute if you'd like, but
Seen a lot of learn first tonight. It's interesting. Every time we lead this training, sometimes we see lots of learn first, sometimes lots of act first, and neither answer is right or wrong. But yeah, they definitely are both important modes.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a lot of learn first. Both are really important. And there's no right or wrong. I think for me it depends on what it is, but I do tend to lean towards learn first and then take action. Um, let me I don't know where the slide went, but that's okay. Um, so just as folks are continuing to answer, and please feel free, um, I wanted to share a little bit about democracy circles, and each circle is initiated by a convener or a pair of conveners who pick a monthly or more than that, but we like to suggest starting with monthly time and place. They then bring people that they know together in person or on Zoom to take action and to explore how we counter attacks on our democracy right now in all sorts of facets of what that looks like. We at the Workers Circle provide for our conveners resources, goals, and training, and you bring your passion and your people. So the core purpose of democracy circles is to involve people in learning about our democracy and taking action to strengthen it. The best answer to a rise in fascist policies that we discussed a minute ago is engaged citizens who know American history, who understand the building blocks of democracy, and who take action together to ensure political equality and the full participation of all Americans. So, simply put, democracy circles are small groups of people who gather together once a month to build community, learn, and take action. So, on this question, um, our democracy circles involve a little bit of both about learning and taking action. And so, this really where there's no right way to do it. It doesn't matter where you start because democracy circles are, well, circles. So, it is all a cycle of action and reflection and learning always through everything. So you can build power and community by starting with action or with learning. And we'll tell you a little bit more about what you can do to get your circle off the ground. So here are some pictures from some of our democracy circles across the country. And democracy circles build grassroots power by gathering and equipping the people that you're already connected with. And this is an adaptable model that can take the form, any form you need, really. There are groups that meet around a kitchen table. There are groups that meet in a church basement or after regular protests or at a coffee shop or on Zoom. Your circle might include family members, friends, neighbors, people you know from a church or a synagogue, members of your book club or community garden or union. Democracy circles are an entry point for people who want to do something about the loss of our rights and the erosions of our democracy. And so the Workers Circle staff, myself and Francesca and a few other of our organizers, support our Democracy Circle leaders in several key ways. Uh, First of all, we provide quarterly conveners guides, which suggest recommended topics and action for democracy each month. Included here are some screenshots from our current Q2 Democracy Circle Convener Guide, our April and May overviews. And so we created these monthly guides after hearing from so many community members that they were just feeling really overwhelmed by the attacks on our democracy and feeling unsure where to start and where to plug in. So the Worker Circle staff help work through this challenge by providing the suggested topic and suggested meeting agenda for conveners to use every month. Circles can use these guides to learn about a political issue or bill and then take some sort of a concrete advocacy step. The suggested actions vary from month to month. For example, in January of 2026, our Democracy Circle convener guide included know your rights information and resources and training on how to interact with ICE officers and federal troops, as many of our communities were affected by federal occupation. The convener guide also provided suggestions on how to distribute know your rights information more broadly and how to connect with local mutual aid efforts. Other months, our convener guides encourage democracy circles to participate in the No Kings mass mobilization, for example. Back in March, that was the focus of our guide. And that has been for some of the previous No Kings mobilizations. And other actions have included how to reach out to their local sheriffs to put pressure on them to cease collaborations with ICE. The monthly convener guides are a starting place, and they are intended to be the floor and not the ceiling. You are welcome to use any piece of it that is helpful. And also, if your group or the people that you know are really passionate about something that isn't in the guide, we are happy to support you in taking action on however else your community is being impacted, um, at- so that you can help to defend democracy. So some circles, like I mentioned briefly before, meet more than once a month, and they may take on additional actions and projects in coalition or with other local groups. Your circle might be interested in or passionate, say, in environmental justice or excited about a local candidate for office. Circles are encouraged to stay civically engaged in all kinds of ways, but our convener guides help to align workers' circle activities across the country on shared priorities and give us a jumping off point in a very chaotic political environment. Apart from our convener guides, the Workers Circle also provides conveners with one-on-one support. New conveners are connected with an organizer, like Francesca or myself, who will check in with you about once a month, but also more frequently if that is what works for you or less. Totally personalized, whatever is helpful for you, to talk through any roadblocks your circle's confronting, and to answer any questions you might have about our monthly focus. Once a quarter, we also hold special Zoom calls for circle conveners. Democracy Circle leaders from across the country come online to share success stories and best practices, to brainstorm solutions, and consider collaborations. These gatherings help conveners inspire each other and share resources. Building power is a marathon, not a sprint. And so our Democracy Circle model is designed to foster connections within your circle, between Democracy Circle conveners, and between Democracy Circles and other grassroots groups in each community. We build in moments for reflection and community building so that participating in Democracy Circles feels connective and sustainable. Now we're going to take a step back for a second from the nitty-gritty details and talk about the approaches to working for change in this room already. Mhm. So, when you're um, working for change or wanting to work for change, is it easier for you to start with something new or to sustain existing work?
And again, feel free to answer in the chat or come off mute if you want to share a little bit longer answer. Yeah, are you someone who likes to start something new, to kind of be the initiator of something, or do you like to sustain or support an existing project? Seen one answer for sustain. This is another one where there's no right or wrong answer. Both are good approaches. Yeah, like someone like I see Jim saying I like to follow those who trailblazed. It's important. Other people saying sustain. Some other people saying start something new. Also, don't know is a perfectly good answer too. Maybe you've never done something like this before and haven't been involved in organizing before. And we are so glad you're here if that's the case, because this is a model that's designed to be a great starting point for someone who might not have felt like they were in the right time in their life or place in their life, or didn't feel as urgently about these issues. But now I know many people who feel like now's the time to really get off the sidelines and try out this kind of community organizing for democracy. So thank you for being here. Oh, I like the answer of also either, whatever is needed. That's a good answer too. Thanks
100%.
everyone. I think Shoshana, I'm going to take back to continue sharing a little bit more about the democracy circle model. So democracy circles, try to take a little bit of both of these approaches. We encourage people to start a new democracy circle, but we also, by connecting you with these convener guides, by drawing on the existing work of the worker circle, we're helping you not start from scratch. We're giving you that monthly jumping off point, that the organizers like Shoshana and I and the rest of the worker circle social justice team are drawing on our own experience, drawing on the work of our coalition partners. So it's a little bit of something new, and it's a little bit of something that's already in motion and sustainable. Um, Democracy circles help you get started and provide that ongoing structure and resources and support. And we really want to level the playing field with this democracy circle model. Some conveners have gathered people and organized events for years, and other people who have started democracy circles have never put together a gathering of activists of any kind. So don't worry if either of those apply to you. That's wonderful. We're glad you're here, and there's no experience necessary to start a democracy circle. So I'm just going to go over again the resources that the Worker Circle provides to our Democracy Circle conveners, and we're going to take a closer look at them. Some of them Shoshana touched on, and others I will share a little bit more about. So if we can go to the next slide. So the Worker Circle, when you sign up to start a Democracy Circle, and actually, Shoshana, maybe you can drop that sign up form in the chat right now in case anyone is feeling inspired and ready to get started. Um, you will receive a short getting started guide and another guide that we called outreach tips guide that really provide just some additional support and reminders on how to kind of make those initial acts of getting people interested in a democracy circle and how do you prepare for that first meeting. Number two, we have the monthly conveners guides that Shoshana was discussing that sustain your work that provide that suggested monthly action for democracy. Number three, we have the quarterly calls with other conveners for connection and inspiration, helping you kind of see what's working well, maybe in other states or in other communities that are similar than yours or maybe different than yours, and that can spark new ideas. Four, you get that one-on-one support from a Worker Circle organizer. Shoshana is our new Democracy Circle organizer. So Shoshana is really the point person for Democracy Circles, but you will also hear from other other Worker Circle staff members. Our team has actually grown a lot. We now have 9 people total on our social justice team. So even if Shoshana takes a vacation, you'll have plenty of people to support you um, as you build your circle. And then 5, we also have additional Democracy Circle discussion resources. If your circle just gets off to a raring start and you have so much going on and you want to dig deeper into a specific issue or you want to have extra meetings to continue discussions on so learning about different topics related to democracy, voting rights, immigrant justice in particular, we do have additional resources and suggestions for you to deepen your learning and spark discussion. If you're getting through that convener guide really quickly, there is more that we can provide you to learn from. So to look a little more closely at these resources, thanks, Shoshana, the Getting Started guide. Oh, or actually, we're going to pause? I'll just share a tiny bit more about the Getting Started guide. We'll let you know what a Democracy Circle convener does to start and sustain a circle with some suggestions on how to organize the time at each gathering. So I think something important to know is that the convener guides also include sample agendas. So you don't have to be thinking so much about, oh, I got to make sure I allocate 10 minutes for this and 10 minutes for that. We'll give you a suggested template for how to organize your time. Then the outreach tips guide is what helps you get people to join your circle. Maybe you're someone who's been a long time postcarder with the Center for Common Ground, but you've been postcarding alone and you're not quite sure how to reach out to others. Our Getting Started guide and outreach tips will help you connect with other people in your community online or in person. And we know it often takes many attempts to gather people, even when they're interested. So we have some advice on when to sort of push a little bit and how to persist, and when to, say, okay, maybe this person is really not interested. So because that piece can feel a little scary or a little intimidating to people, let's take a moment to think together about outreach. So everyone who's here listening and thinking about whether they could convene a democracy circle, I'd like you to think, who would you invite to be a part of a democracy circle? And a good way to start thinking about that is, who do you already gather with? Many of us gather with people every day. It could be an established group that you're a part of that could transform into a democracy circle or start to incorporate democracy circle resources into their existing work. So in the chat, drop the name of at least one. It could be a kind of person or group of people that you would invite. Could be your bowling team, alumni from your high school or your college, family members, people you walk with or go to the gym with, friends from your union, your workplace, or other people. So yeah, I see someone already said neighbors. I know several people who meet with their neighbors or like family members who they share a home with. Yeah, who would you invite? Yeah, cousins, a standout group. I'm not sure what standout. It might be another existing kind of activist organization. If you're a part of another activist group, it's not an exclusive thing. Democracy circles can be additive and incorporate. You can incorporate our resources with those of other groups too. Yeah, family members, people from church. There are a bunch of democracy circles that are connected with different faith communities, with churches, with synagogues, with other spiritual communities. So that could be a good place to start. So if your church or other faith community has a social justice committee or people who might be interested in doing more democracy work, that could be a good place.
I know Audrey shared in the chat a few minutes ago about a local indivisible group. That is another place where many of our conveners are really involved with local indivisible or other social justice orgs, as Fran mentioned. And so that is often a starting point, which is wonderful.
Yeah, I'm seeing some people saying that you already need to write postcards with friends or with community members for the Center for Common Ground. Those are people who could that's often a suggested democracy circle action. So if you already have a postcard writing group, that's a great place to start or think about how you could maybe bring additional democracy circle resources to that space in that community. So thanks everyone for answering this question. So as we spoke about earlier, the convener's role, what does a convener do? The convener's role is not that complicated. You can be a convener. We could all do it. Really, the main thing a convener does is to pick a meeting time and a place and gathers people they know together. So it's usually people you're already connected to at least in some way. Democracy Circle conveners don't have to be major leaders in their community, just be regular people. It's okay if you get nervous speaking in front of a crowd or if you've never organized something like this before. We'll help you every step of the way. That's what that one-on-one connections with organizers is for. And you're also always allowed to co-convene with someone else. So if you're someone who, if this is maybe feeling a little intimidating or makes you feel a little nervous, but you want to do it, maybe think, is there a friend or someone in your life who you might want to do this together with, and you could both invite friends and community members, and that could really help bring people together who might not have connected otherwise. So to go over what a convener does, they reach out to people they know and invite them to join the circle. They set that time and place to meet so that you can gather for action and reflection, and decides what to do at the first gathering. The convener is also the circle's point person for support, bringing in new resources via email, and who will let us at Worker Circle know how things have been going for you, what you've been up to lately, just so we can advise and support you. And conveners also have, as we talked about earlier, an opportunity to gather together online to share what's working with people who are convening circles in other parts of the country. Those kind of quarterly meetings also allow conveners to think a little bit about how their work fits into the greater movements for democracy, for immigrant justice, for racial justice, for all of this work for a multiracial and multicultural democracy that we're trying to build. So now I'm going to tell you one more example of a democracy circle. We're going to look at an example of a democracy circle convener guide from this fall and a democracy circle convener who used it to take action. So, Shoshana, I think you're going to drop a link in the chat when you have a chance. But I just want to tell you a little bit about a Democracy Circle convener who's become a dear friend of mine. Her name is Susan Hudson. She lives in Boise, Idaho, and about a year and a half ago, she came to an event like this. She knew she wanted to do more for democracy in her kind of blue dot in a red state kind of situation, and she decided to start inviting some like-minded people in her community to take action for democracy. And they decided to take action. One of the ways they chose to do so was by following the steps of the Worker Circle's Talk to Your Sheriff campaign, which was a suggested action in a convener guide a couple months ago. So that meant that Susan and her circle set up a meeting with their local sheriff and asked for more information about whether the sheriff was collaborating with ICE in terms of detaining immigrants and undocumented folks to ICE for ICE in ways that went against their moral principles, and also wanted to make sure that their sheriff was upholding Idaho state law. And so they were actually successful in bringing a petition for more information to the Ada County Sheriff's Office, and they actually got several local faith leaders and community leaders of I believe 2 or 3 local churches involved in coming to have a meeting with the sheriff. And they had a really respectful and productive meeting with the sheriff where they learned more about sort of his stance, and were able to share with him that there were many people in their community who did not want their sheriff to be spending time detaining and arresting people who happened to be undocumented but were contributing members of their community, and instead wanted the sheriff to focus on other important community safety initiatives. So they were able to make their voices heard to a sheriff who even though they're an elected official, doesn't normally hear from constituents very much. So that was a very effective form of legislative advocacy. And the link that Shoshana shared in the chat is a lovely article in the Idaho Capital Sun, the local newspaper, which you can read a little bit more about Susan's experience starting a democracy circle and why she decided to do so, even in a place where not everyone is necessarily shares the same politics. It's definitely a place that includes Democrats, Republicans, independents, people with all kinds of different political views. But Susan has had a really positive response when she and her Democracy Circle have actually they've done tabling with nonpartisan get out the vote information in public places, like in front of a library and at a local theater performance, and they've been able to share um, information about voter suppression and how to push back against it with many people in their community. So I always like to share Susan's story, just because her circle in Boise is doing such great work and is growing all the time. They've just added a couple new members, and they're hoping to support another circle springing up in Idaho very soon. So a little bit about Susan Hudson. I hope you get to read her interview. She's just a lovely, bright person, a former educator with a lovely spirit, and she's someone who also often welcomes and encourages new Democracy Circle conveners. So if you're like, I'd love to meet this person, you would get to meet her at the monthly convener calls, or the quarterly convener call.
So we're gonna wrap it up in a second and then have plenty of time for Q&A as we mentioned. But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about next steps. We really hope that this presentation has helped to give you some groundwork and understanding about our Democracy Circles model, the role of the conveners, and the resources and support that conveners receive from the Worker Circle. Um, oh, I forgot that there's a quote from Susan in here. Just to share from this article, Susan said, listening is what we ended up doing there. Almost everyone who wanted to talk with us in any detail just unloaded their frustration, and in a couple of cases, their outright despair. You just work person to person, and then there's maybe some hope that we'll get a critical mass and something can happen, which I really love.
I think that was Susan reflecting on her experience, just sort of tabling in front of the public library and talking to people about what it means to be in a democracy circle and to be, getting together for regular kind of civic engagement and action.
Thank you. And yes, absolutely. I think it's so she's right on right there with just one person at a time. And then that starts to build and into something, a critical mass or something much bigger than any of us individually can do. And so when it comes to next steps, um, friend, would you mind sharing in the chat again our sign up form? You can fill out this
Yeah.
form to sign up to convene a circle, and myself or somebody else from our organizing team will set up a time to talk with you via phone or Zoom, whatever you're most comfortable with. We'll walk you through everything that we talked about tonight in more details. You'll also get the conveners or the most recent conveners guide, our outreach guide, and our getting started guide so that you'll have all of the resources that you need to kind of get things going for your group. Um, we'll also then have a lot more time to connect one-on-one, brainstorm ideas, answer any questions that you may have, and your hopes and goals and what you may want your circle to look like and how we can get that started or how you can get that started and how we can support you in doing that. So we really hope that you will join us in our work to build a truly multiracial, multicultural democracy. So we across the country have more than 40 active democracy circles. They range in size too, from two or three or four friends to circles with more than 100 activists and their own newsletter. Democracy circles are currently meeting in Boise, Idaho, like Susan's circle that we mentioned, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Denver, Colorado, Berkeley, California, Durham, North Carolina, Brooklyn, New York, and just truly everywhere in between. So let's open it up to Q&A. Feel free to either drop your questions in the chat or come off mute. And we're happy to help answer anything for people.
Also, Shoshana, I'm just realizing I think you have that nicer, shorter Bitly link. I found a longer, a little bit more complicated one. But if you have that Bitly one, maybe you can drop that again in the chat so people
Happy to
start
post
signing
it.
up. Yeah. Didn't want to yeah, how would one connect to the Minneapolis group? So there is an active democracy circle in Minneapolis, and if you'd like to meet with the leader there, she's a really lovely person. There, the you are definitely welcome to, or as long as they're okay with us sharing their information with you. Existing democracy circles can meet with you to share a little bit about their experience and some guidance and mentoring. But the goal is really not for everyone to form these huge democracy circles, but for you to start your own democracy circle with people that you already know and are connected with. So we could help you get connected for mentorship and support with existing democracy circles. But we hope that you would at least consider who you could get to start your democracy circle, who's already someone in your life that you could draw on for support and get more and new people involved in this kind of democracy circle activism. But a very good question. But the first step would be to set up a one-on-one with Shoshana by filling out the interest form. Even if you're most interested in getting connected with an existing circle, talk with Shoshana, and she might be able to give you some pointers on how to start your own, as well as how to connect with one that is already relatively long-standing.
Absolutely. And a lot of times too, our circles, well, we encourage you to create your own circle with the people in your network. Um, our circles, especially when there are big actions coming up, like No Kings, like to connect with each other to form a more critical mass. And that we are happy to help connect you with so that you can bring a few circles together and build more power in numbers that way.
Yeah, sometimes circles that have existed for a while too, it takes time to sort of build trust and to take action together. So some circles are open to bringing in any new folks, but others might want to keep their circle of people that they've organized with for a while. Though if you start your own circle, you could come together in the future. Oh, I'm reading a great comment from Tony. I hope you don't mind if I read it aloud. But Tony wrote, "Our small neighborhood group in San Jose, though not organized as a democracy circle, found that taking physical action was what finally sparked and sustained us. We now have a weekly protest on a busy corner on a commercial street in our neighborhood. It started with 5 or 6 of us, but now more people have been joining. Attendance at our informal, friendly, half-hour-long protest has tripled." Thank you for sharing that, Tony. If you want to come off mute and share a little bit more about that, we'd love to hear from it. And something similar has happened in my own community in Brooklyn. There's also a similar, protest for democracy. People gather on Thursday. I think it's 5:30 to 6:30, something like that, and just gather together. And sometimes they go to larger actions like No Kings or May Day together, but they have found that irregular protest action does help draw new people to them. So if you only have, a couple people and aren't sure where to start, having a physical presence somewhere on a regular basis can be a way, like whether it's tabling or having a protest can be a way to draw new people in. Thank you for sharing that, Tony. Did you want to share anything else in your own words? We can also take the presentation down so that we can just be, talking more informally now.
Yeah, this is Tony. Yeah. Well, if anyone has any questions, but I think what we found, we had been meeting intermittently at somebody's house, and we are largely like-minded politically in the neighborhood, and they were fun gatherings, but they were hard to sustain, and nothing really came of them. Of course, we didn't have the advantage of formal structure like the one that Democracy Circles provides. But what we found is that as soon as we decided, well, the hell with this, we're going to get out on the street. And I'm a painter, so I made a bunch of signs, and we passed them around. We went down to this corner, and one of the signs, there's a lot of traffic. Hundreds of cars go by in the hour that we're there. And I made a big sign that said, "Join us every Friday, 5 to 6." And I think, and that's really worked. It's growing. And I hope there's no end in sight. I'd like to see it get even bigger. And we are in California, but the positive responses through hunks, waves, thumbs ups, far outweighs the thumbs down or the occasional flip bird or what have you. So it's great. I highly recommend it.
Oh, thank you so much, Tony. That really makes me think about that question of like, do you like to do learning first or acting first? This is maybe a situation where taking that action of like, physically going to a place to make yourself known in your community was what really sparked people to, continue to sustain and attend. And yeah, I think that this is a democracy becoming a democracy circle. It's not a super formal process. All it really means is that you use our convener guide in some way and you periodically check in with the worker circle. Even if you have an existing group that, has activities you like to do, you can kind of layer our resources into what you're already doing. So Tony, we'd love to follow up with you.
Okay, thank you.
So there's a question from Callie in the chat. Maybe you want to take that one, Shoshana.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Kelly. So you can certainly do have a circle with people who live near you and also don't live near you. We have honestly a handful of circles come to mind for me that um either meet on Zoom primarily, even if they all live in the same place. Sometimes it's just easier to meet virtually, or have people who meet in person and some people who will meet on Zoom. Some people, I know of one convener who has two circles, one for all of the people who live in her area and one for family that happen to live across the country. Um, so when everyone is in the same state, at least, sometimes it is easier to take state level actions. Um, as things come up. However, so much of what we do is really applicable across the board and across the country. And so we certainly encourage you to include anyone in your network. And we're happy to talk more about what that might look like for you in your particular circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah, Kelly. So you now you have your hand up still. If you wanna add anything, any questions or comments, feel free to come off mute if you'd like, or if other people have questions.
It's just that I live in a really rural area and I have
Mm,
friends in other towns, nearby towns and, 20 minutes away or whatever. And we're so isolated here.
mm.
And so I've
Yeah.
started to do the Democracy Circle. And I have a couple people in the town I live, but maybe like three. And I'd love to include the people from the other towns so we could all start a Democracy Circle.
I love that. Absolutely. Yeah, especially if you want to do something like on Zoom, that sometimes helps with geographic barriers.
But we can all get together for actions and we can all get together to meet. It's just that we don't live in the same towns.
Absolutely. And that's great. And you can also do a combination of the two, of if you want to have a discussion on Zoom and then all meet up for an action or all meet up pick a day to postcard, um, and kind of combine those two modalities. That
Thanks.
is great, just so that you don't have to do too much going back and forth, but people can be in your circle from anywhere, near or far.
Yeah. And the idea of this model is that it's meant to be flexible and adaptable for you to adapt it to your needs. And no one at Worker Circle is going to be, upset with you like, oh, you have a hybrid circle. No, and we're going to be thrilled that you're engaging with our democracy, that you're, taking action in your community and bringing people together. That's really the base goal. So it's, the organizers are here to help adapt the model to you. It's not that you have to do exactly what is written in the convener guide at all times. So no, thank you for that great question. And I know there's a circle I work with in New York that has some people who are, snowbirds who go down to Florida for the winter. So, they meet in person for part of the year and then they go on Zoom for another part of the year. So it really is adaptable to your situation. And there are some suggested actions for democracy, like making phone banking, calls to voters in states where there's voter suppression that are actually easier to do online anyway. So even sometimes circles that meet in person might choose to join, have a month where they meet virtually because they want to either, watch a training together or participate in something like phone banking that's easier to do on a computer. Good question. Any other questions? Well, we've got some time together, or it can be a comment. It can be if you're feeling excited, if you have a thought of who you might want to invite to your democracy circle or a way to get off the ground. Comments are welcome also.
I'm also seeing Jim asked in the chat, as a secular org, would we help support a faith-based group? Absolutely. We have quite a few circles who are faith-based, either in their congregations or people who know each other from certain congregations and incorporate their faith into the work that they're doing, across a variety of different religious and cultural practices and faiths as well. And so we certainly would support that and encourage it. If that is where your community that you want to organize is, we can help make it happen with.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, Jim. I just want to add too that, again, also each each convener, each circle is a little different and brings their own, unique life experiences and sensibilities to bringing people together. I know there's a circle that I believe first connected because several people were members of a UU church, and they usually start with a prayer or a song at the beginning of their meeting. And so, circles aren't required to do that, and there are some circles that would never think of including a prayer in their meeting. But if that's something that worked for you and was meaningful for your circle to ground what you're doing in a faith or spiritual practice, go for it. We encourage that as an organization that also really values Yiddish language and culture. And Worker Circle has a social justice team, but we also have a whole Yiddish language and culture team. If that's of interest to you, we're happy to tell you more. If you have no idea what Yiddish is, never mind. We'll tell you another time. That's a whole other educational program. But we think about cultural activism a lot and how we draw on how each person can draw on their cultural background and family history to inspire their activism. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? I'm seeing one from Marcy in the chat saying, yeah, there's no shortage of ways to fight for democracy and justice in Santa Rosa. I'm sure that's true. I'm familiar with Northern California. But yeah, part of what democracy circles are for is to kind of, help combine efforts and sort of have some aligned priorities across the country, even if local action looks a little different for every circle. Thanks for that comment.
I also find it really empowering and inspiring to know that there are groups across the country who are working on the same topics and fighting for the same things. And part of why we put out the convener guide. So, for example, in April or March for the third No Kings protests, we had, we put it in our convener guide and gave resources for how to engage. And while one circle in one spot may be doing something, to know that there's a much bigger network of activists across the country who are all engaging in similar actions to protect our democracy.
Seeing a question in the chat from Gail, do you have any Spanish language materials? That is a great question. We currently, our Democracy Circle convener guides, our central materials are all in English. However, we do have some Spanish speaking, staff members on our team. And if that's something that would be particularly helpful for your circle, like, let's talk about it. Set up a meeting with Shoshana. We can see about getting materials translated. And if you're thinking about kind of like know your rights materials or resources, we definitely include those materials in different languages when we encourage that kind of distribution of know your rights materials as a call to action. And we fund Worker Circle, another, I think, a way in which we, kind of power what we do at Democracy Circle. The Worker Circle is a part of a lot of different coalitions of really wonderful organizations that have specialized knowledge on different topics within immigrant justice, within democracy, within voting rights. So, for example, we collaborate with a group called the Tension Watch Network closely on a lot of our efforts that have to do with fighting mass deportation. And they have a lot of additional materials and resources that we share with Democracy Circle. So, Worker Circle doesn't have to be an expert on every single topic, but a lot of our coalition partners are, but we pull that knowledge together for Democracy Circle leaders to access in one place. Yeah. Any other questions? If you want to just sort of, stick around to talk about an idea for starting a circle, you're welcome to do so. We've got about 10 more minutes in our call, and Shoshana and I are here for you as long as you want to be here. But we have done our kind of formal presentation, but please, we are happy to keep answering questions and taking comments while you are here. But we hope that you will sign up to start a Democracy Circle, to have a one-on-one with Shoshana or one of our other organizers to get you started. And please sign up, even if you're not sure if you're going to be able to start a Democracy Circle right away. If you're curious about the model, if you want to learn more, please sign up and we'll take it from there. You're not committing to doing something tomorrow. In fact, you're just committing to having a conversation with Shoshana.
And like we said at the top of the hour, we will send out the recording and the slides and this form again in a follow-up email, likely tomorrow, if not later in the week. So if you miss it right now and want to come back to anything, you will have access to all of these materials.
Yeah, and Worker Circle also has a lot going on besides Democracy Circles. We have many other specific campaigns around voter empowerment. With the midterms coming up, we do a lot of nonpartisan get out the vote efforts, especially getting out the vote to communities of color that face additional barriers to the polling place. We do a lot of organizing around immigrant justice with freedom vigils and talk to your sheriff. These are campaigns that I mentioned that are also you can learn more about within the convener guides. We always have some kind of what we call evergreen ongoing campaigns that democracy circles are welcome to tap into. So we have lots of ways to take action for democracy within democracy circles, but also outside of it. I might just also drop our general worker circle events calendar if anyone's just curious what else we've got going on. We also have a lot of educational historical programs that have to do with Yiddish, with progressive Jewish American history, things like that. So if that is up your alley, take a look at our general worker circle events calendar, both for social justice actions. We have a monthly training called How to Be an Effective Advocate. It's all about building advocacy skills. That's another great one. So feel free to take a look at all the events we have going on at our organization that includes a big social justice advocacy wing and also our Yiddish kind of cultural heritage. Yeah, and I'm seeing people are talking in the chat about Spanish language materials and Know Your Rights. Yeah, the ACLU, another great partner, great organization that we draw on for resources too. It's a good place to go. I'm a fan of Make the Road, that I know is a strong organization in New York, but it has chapters in many other places. We work with HIAS as well, which does a lot of work on refugee and asylum seeker support and resettlement. So yeah, just throwing out some other partner orgs. But thank you, everyone. You're welcome to say on questions, comments. You just want to you just like hanging out on Zoom on a Tuesday night. I know I do. A question from Jim. Do you want to take that one, Shoshana?
Yeah. Jim, absolutely. You can get support as a lone activist, and also we can help you not be a lone activist for long. All of the groups, most of the groups start with one person, sometimes two, and go from there. And so, like we said, we provide some information about how to do some outreach, and also if you want to do some of the things in our guide by yourself or use it and then take it to other work that you're already doing, you're welcome to do that too. But we can certainly support you in whatever you need.
Yeah, I like to highlight. I know there's been a couple circles that I think most of them have since grown, but I remember I worked with a convener named Cheryl in Colorado, who for a while her circle was just her and her son. She and her son started doing a lot of legislative visits and really actually built strong relationships with their local elected officials. And they went around and collected on issues that they cared about, and the worker circle helped them kind of learn about specifically the opposing the FAVE Act and a lot of opposing voter suppression bills. They learned about those issues and they went around and collected signatures from their neighbors on those bills, and they started doing petition drops, like delivering those petitions to their local elected officials. And at first it was just Cheryl and her son, but now I think through doing that they met some neighbors, and now they have some more people in their circle. But I always also liked the mother son duo. They were a small but mighty circle. So it's also okay if a circle for a while is only one or two or three people. That might be the right size for you, or it could grow in the future. Yeah, I'm seeing a message from Vicky saying that Vicky's local with is active with Indivisible. Great to know what others are doing. Yeah, and of course, like also, if you're just curious to learn more about how democracy circles work and what our focuses are each month, even if your Indivisible chapter is doing other things, you're welcome to meet with Shoshana and continue the conversation. And Hugh saying, how does the circle choose the issues on which to focus? So Worker Circle does have a suggested kind of topic and action for each month, and that sort of changes based on the time of year, whether elections are coming up, whether the federal budget is coming up. Some of it is like seasonal, timely based. Some of it has to do with what our coalition partners are doing and how ways we want to connect and support to other organizations. But as we said before, circles can also within themselves choose topics that they're passionate about and say, we want to do this as well, or this month we're going to set the suggested action aside and do something else. That's okay too. We hope that you use the convener guide at least, maybe let's say at least half the time, but you can use your judgment and be flexible too. But good question, you. Yeah, thank you everyone for the support in the chat. Thanks for being here. You've seen
Yeah,
I'm also
thank you.
Edwan, a friend from the Center for Common Ground. Thanks for being here. They are supporters and partners in this
No
organizing
problem.
model as
It's
well.
my first time and I was happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming,
Yeah.
Edwan. Now you know a little bit more about how democracy circles work.
That's right. No,
Great to see you. Mhm.
Yeah, thank you everyone for being on. Feel free to continue asking questions or hop off, and I'm hoping to have conversations with you all soon. And so please fill out the form and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, that next step is to have a one-on-one, learn more about the model. Yeah, of course. Thanks for being here. And keep an eye out for that follow-up email with slides and with that interest form if you haven't had a chance to fill it out yet, or I can drop it in the chat one more time. Oh yeah. Thank you, Sharon. Thanks, Audrey. Cassius, Hugh, thank you all for being here.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
can take that next step of filling out the form while you're still on the call if you'd like. Or yeah, stay on if you want to ask us any more questions or share any thoughts you had about the presentation. We also always like to hear feedback on the model.